Welcome back to Project 613. Continuing on the theme of Shabbat, the next mitzvah is a mitzvah that comes from the 10 Commandments, where we are told, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat l'kadsho, remember the Shabbos day to keep it holy. Now, how do we remember the Shabbos day to keep it holy? What is this referring to? The answer is that this is a reference to the mitzvah of Kiddush and Havdalah, and that means we remember the Shabbos by proclaiming its holiness and expressing how it is distinct from the other days of the week, both when the Shabbos enters, through making the blessing of Kiddush, and when the Shabbos exits, through making the blessing of Havdalah. In both, we proclaim the sanctity of the Shabbat with words. And this is how we fulfill the biblical obligation of sanctifying the day and remembering it to keep it holy. Our sages added to this and instructed that when fulfilling this mitzvah, we should do it over a cup of wine. And that is how the Kiddush is practiced until today in every Jewish home, in every Jewish community. We don't only recite the blessing, which is the biblical obligation, but rather we recite the blessing of Kiddush over a cup of wine, as our rabbis instructed us. So when we make Kiddush, we are actually fulfilling both a biblical obligation of reciting the Kiddush itself and the rabbinic obligation of drinking the cup of wine. Why did the rabbis instruct us to recite the Kiddush over a cup of wine? One of the explanations is that as human beings, we are more inspired and we are more affected when we do a physical act. And when a mitzvah has a physical act that it's connected to, it talks to us much more than when we just say words. And therefore, since the whole idea of Kiddush is to proclaim the sanctity of Shabbos and to remind us of our faith in the creation of the world, that Hashem created the world in 6 days and rested on the Shabbos, the sages felt that if we would just proclaim it in a blessing, it may remain far removed from us. But if we associate it with drinking a cup of wine, a very physical, enjoyable act, that will help the message be internalized in a deeper way. And that is why they instructed us to drink a cup of wine and to recite the Kiddush and the Havdalah over a cup of wine. Now, if you look in the actual Kiddush blessing, there are actually 2 points that are made in the Kiddush blessing. On the one hand, we talk in the Kiddush about how the Shabbos reminds us. Zecher l'maaseh v'reshit, this is a remembrance for the days of creation. And we affirm our faith. This is in fact one of the reasons for Shabbat, that reminds us of the fact that Hashem created the world in 6 days and rested on Shabbat, and so too we also work for 6 days and rest on Shabbat. And every week when we observe Shabbat, we are affirming our faith in Hashem and His creation. But also in the Kiddush, we also mention Zecher l'Yetzias Mitzrayim. It is a remembrance for the Exodus of Egypt. How does that come into the Kiddush? The answer is that in the Jewish belief, it's not enough to believe in a God who once upon a time created the world, yes, in 6 days and rested on the 7th, but that may be something in the past. And that's why we add that the Shabbat also reminds us of our faith in Hashem who took us out of Egypt. Because the fact that Hashem took the Jewish people out of Egypt tells us that not only did Hashem once upon a time create the world and then perhaps leave it be, but rather He is involved and He cares about what happens in His world. And He cared so much that He took His people out of Egypt. And so too we affirm our faith every week that Hashem cares about each and every individual. And He is concerned about the well-being of His creations. That is the faith, the true Jewish faith that we have in Hashem. And that's why the Kiddush includes not only the faith in the creation of heaven and earth, but also the Exodus of Egypt, where Hashem gets involved in His creations and liberates them from all of their troubles. Have a wonderful day and a great Shabbos.